You're listening to episode 222 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Udo Erasmus. Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hand, and I want to welcome you to Lifestyle Locker Radio. It is here where we talk all things lifestyle, from fitness to nutrition, peak performance to longevity, awesome relationships to inspirational stories. We take you on an amazing journey to all things life and lifestyle. Enjoy the ride. And for today's guest, if you want to learn more than they're going to tell you on this show, I urge you to scroll down, check out the show notes to get a detailed bio and everything you need to know about our guest today. We also encourage that you comment, review, and share this show if you are enjoying it from wherever and whenever you're listening. Lastly, we encourage you to check out all the links that we provide in the show notes. They are there for you, for your health, for your lifestyle. We ultimately want you to unleash your human potential. So dive into this episode. We'll see you on the inside. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lifestyle Locker Radio. We have another amazing guest. As you can imagine, this guest is going to bring some serious knowledge to the table, some life experience. We're going to go all over the place because we really want to have a huge impact on not just your health, but your life. Hence, this is called Lifestyle Locker Radio. So Udo, welcome to the show.
To be on, we're going to have some serious fun here.
Yes, we are. So many of you may know Udo through his products, right? Through his supplementation, his nutrition. So Udo, let's dive back. For those that don't know you, give your story, share your story with everybody, because I think it's going to be very powerful to see who they're listening to.
I'm 78 years old. I was born in 1942 during the Second World War in Poland, which was then part of Germany. That's a whole long story that we can do another time.
Imagine. Yeah.
And before I was 3, we were refugees fleeing from the communists who were chasing us in trucks and tanks down roads that were filled with mostly women and children on horse-drawn hay wagons. The horses didn't get anything to eat because we were just like trying to get out of there. And it was a total mess. There were no soldiers on the road, and the Allies were using us refugees as target practice, shooting at us from planes. So we were in a crossfire with the communists in the back and the Allies in front, both sides trying to take us out. And I don't remember a lot of it. My sister, who's just a few years older, remembers dead horses and dead people in the ditches. And that really formed her, because said, why does it have to be like this? So that was lifelong for her. But for me, I just remember the fear, the anxiety, the confusion. There was nothing I could rely on. My mother had to leave me behind because the roads were so unsafe because of the Allied shooting, artillery, right, from the planes, that she took 2 of the 6 kids she had, 6 years old and under, by herself. She had 6 kids, and she took 2 of them because she's only got 2 hands, and went across the fields. So she left 4 of us behind. And I ended up in an orphanage for a short while, and her sister eventually went back behind enemy lines, and because she was fluent in Russian, went back because my parents actually came from Latvia and Estonia, so they spoke Russian, Latvian, and Estonian and German, all from childhood on. So she came and found us and brought us back to the family, got reunited in Germany. And when I was 6 years old, and this is my driver, here comes my driver, right?
Yeah.
My driver for my life. When I was 6 years old, I listened to adults in Germany argue about things that I thought as a 6-year-old were really trivial. It's like, why are you arguing about that? That's not important. And it occurred to me, man, there must be a way that human beings can live in harmony. And then, like a 6-year-old who doesn't know how complicated everything is, I just very confidently said, I'm going to find out how. And that's been my driver all my life. So when it came to, and because I couldn't rely on anything, I didn't have much trust in people because my experience with people was not that great. I spent a lot of time by myself reading books. And when it came to studying, First I went into science because I wanted to know how things work. And then I got into biosciences because I wanted to know how creatures work.
Mm.
And then I got into psychology because I wanted to know how thinking works. Because the idea is if you understand how something works, then you can rely on it for what it is.
Yeah.
But if you don't know it, so I was always into studying how things are, what things are. And eventually I took a year of medicine. It's called healthcare, found out it's just about disease. So I left, went back into biology, ended up in biochemistry and genetics. And eventually I left there too, because there was something missing that I was looking for. And I was not finding it at university. And, and got into self-knowledge because I needed to know how I work.
Yeah.
And that's basically is my background.
Yeah. So when did you I mean, that I didn't know we were going down that road. Like that was I'm just thinking about just the history and the studying, like what I've studied from World War II. And
yeah,
I can't fathom what it would be like to be a child, having to do that walk and see the things that you may have saw. Like maybe you're innately blocked it out, like whatever it is, that's unbelievable.
It's terrifying. It's like for little kids, because you don't have control. You don't know who's doing what, and you don't understand why people are doing it.
Yeah.
Why is it so unsafe? And
Yeah.
it's fundamentally people have made the world unsafe for children. So we're doing it in North America too, because if you're not cultivating peace during peacetime, when you have the luxury to do it, you will always drift towards conflict and eventually war. And you can see it happening. I mean, in front of your eyes, you can see it happening.
Yeah. So
around the world.
Yeah.
That was only Europe. Now it's around the world.
Yeah. When is it that you came, university? When did you come to the States?
No, I live in Canada.
Oh, you can't. So when? Okay. So when did you come to North America? When did you come to Canada?
I was 10 years old when it took us. My father was a prisoner of war, taken prisoner in Normandy because he was on the German side.
Okay.
And he was an interpreter because he spoke 5 languages.
Mm.
And so he was taken prisoner in Normandy, ended up in Alabama. They went through Quebec on the way to, however they got there, to Alabama, to the prisoner of war camp, Red Cross camp.
Okay.
And they went through Quebec, and Quebec, the vegetation is like it is in Latvia. And he loved Latvia.
Okay.
Hated communism, but loved Latvia. And he said, if I survive the war, we're going to Canada. Because they had birches and aspens, and that was just like, that was religious to them, spiritual to them.
Okay.
And so it took him, he came back in 1946 to Germany. And then it took 6 years to go through the bureaucracy to get out of Europe. And because their life, if you think about it, their life was up in Latvia, where they were. First World War started in 1907, finished in I can't remember. And but anyway, they got the First World War as children. Then they got the Bolshevik Revolution, which started in 1918.
Wow, holy moly.
Then they got the Depression, which started in 1929-30. And then they got the Second World War. That was their life in Europe. And my father said he couldn't wait to get out of there. They didn't know how to get out of there, but then they got all this pressure and all this craziness. And then Germany, they didn't like us, even though we had German background, but they didn't like us because we were refugees and we were taking up space that belonged to Germans. That's how they thought about it. And he had a farm in Latvia, and then he had a farm in Poland, and lost both of those farms, pretty much lost everything.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think we were able to take a few silver spoons along. They were like heirloom spoons, right?
Yeah.
And and then he couldn't. And then he came to Canada, and a year after we moved to a little village called Oliver in the Okanagan, he went up to northern British Columbia, like about 500 miles north, bought 112 acres for $960.
Wow.
We cleared 40 acres by hand and by horse. He built his own house, his own, shed. We built our own rooms in the house. And he lived there without electricity or radio or television. Because he said, I just want to be left alone.
Off the grid, literally.
It was off the grid. And I just want to be left alone, he would say. Then he would get a newspaper just once a week. He'd read cover to cover. Then he'd put it down fold it up very precisely and put it down, and then get up and walk to the middle of the living room and say to nobody in particular, "The world stinks."
Yeah.
And then he said, that was his view on everything. He didn't like big business. He didn't like big government. He didn't like big religion. For him, nature was the place where you felt best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can imagine going, from World War I all the way through all of that stuff through World War II. Yeah. I mean, to have that mentality burned into your brain for 40 years or 30 years, it's going to have an impact.
And I didn't get along with him very well because I was always experimenting and I was hard to control. And so he and I didn't get along, and I actually hated him. When I was a teenager, I wanted to kill him. I was trying to figure out how and get away with it. And I couldn't figure it out. So I left at 16.
Oh, wow.
When I was 27, one day I was sitting in the sunshine and just thinking about things, or not just hanging around. And I got a picture in my mind of him with this grid of history that he went through behind it. And it occurred to me, wow, if I'd have gone through what he went through, I probably would have turned out a lot like him. Yeah. And at that point, all my animosity just dropped. Because it's okay, I get how he got there. This was not, he was, in a sense, he was a victim of a lot of crazy things that he didn't create.
Yeah.
But that were created around him by whoever created all that craziness. But they didn't practice peace either. They didn't practice harmony. They didn't practice loving. They didn't, it was all just survival stuff.
Yeah. And
they've never found a space to make a life of thriving.
Yeah, let's just jump a little more into the story. So you're in Canada, and when does the desire to start what you've this, I won't call it an empire, but this thing you've currently created, where we are today, what was the desire to jump into that health world and actually start an actual business? What was the driving factor?
So the big driver, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. That started when I was 6.
Yes.
And that's been with me, like everything that didn't head in that direction, I've always let go.
Okay.
When I was 38, I got poisoned by pesticides.
Wow.
And I had always tried to figure out what was I here for? How could I help? What was the best thing I could do? And I could never figure it out. I got poisoned when I was 38, started looking at health because the doctors had nothing for me for pesticide poisoning. So we can spray them, but we can't fix the problems they cause. That's like, I think that would be called irresponsible.
Yes, agreed.
If somebody held them to account, right?
Yeah.
And so I decided to do self-help, and I had the biology, biochemistry background. So I went in the journals and looked at everything to do with health and nutrition, disease and nutrition, knowing the body's made out of food, of course, water and air too. And so the idea was, well, if you're sick and your body's made out of food, water, and air, if you raise the standard of your food, water, air intake, then within 1 year, 98% of the atoms in your body will have been replaced, and you will have built your body to a higher standard.
Yeah, of course.
So because life creates the body. Here's where our decision point is. Here's where we have choice. What goes in, once it goes in and you swallow it, then life takes over and does the best it can with it. But here you have choice about quality. So if you raise your standard of your input, and that applies to everything, whether it's immune function or COVID you're talking about, or infections you're talking about, or energy levels you're talking about. If you raise the standards here, then life will create a body that is more capable of dealing with whatever the challenges are in life. Just because everything in you, your immune system and your muscles and your bones and your brain, everything in your body is made from food, water, and air.
Yeah.
And light is, of course, runs the show.
Yeah. So
Right.
so you started to
So
study and learn all of this nutrition and
yeah,
learn how to heal yourself,
yeah,
let the body, you say raising that level
yeah,
of we'll just say the quality of
yeah.
what's going into your body. And you were able to make changes, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So what happened to me is I got stuck on fats, because that was the area that was most difficult, most poorly understood, most confusing, most contradictory.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stand the contradictions. And it turns out that the essential fatty acids, these are the essential building blocks for body construction and energy production, so form and function. They are the most sensitive of all of our nutrients. They're destroyed by light, by oxygen, and by heat. They need the most care, and we give them the least care. We throw them in a frying pan and turn them into smoke. And you've changed the molecules.
Of course.
If oil turns into smoke, right?
Yeah.
And then I got shocked. I said, oh my God, I can't get healthy on oils like this. And I found out that the industry, when it makes the oil, treats them with sodium hydroxide, which is known as Drano, then phosphoric acid, which is used commercially to wash windows, to degrease windows.
Oh, so
then they're bleached, and then they're heated to frying temperature to clean up the rancidity that comes from bleaching. And when they do that, they do it for shelf life. So I could make oil in Vancouver and sell it in Johannesburg or wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
And I could sell it around the world, and then I would get economies of scale. So I could be a very big business, and it is a big business, 100 billion a year business, the oil business. But in the process of doing that for shelf life, 0.5 to 1% of the molecules are damaged. So then I called the Oil Chemist Society, the umbrella organization of the oil industry. I said, I want to talk to a researcher, because I was trained in research. So you want to talk details, you talk to the researchers, right?
Of course.
They got him on the line. I said, so when you know that the processes you use to make oils industrially damage them, why do you do it? So he said to me, well, one reason why we heat the oil to frying temperature. So in other words, every oil you buy in a plastic bottle off a shelf has already been fried.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right?
That's crazy.
So he said, one of the reasons we do that is we can get rid of half the pesticides in the oil. And I went ballistic in my head.
Yeah.
Because I'd been poisoned by pesticides, right? And I said to him, well, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have the problem to begin with. And there was this long silence at the other end of the phone. Maybe he'd never been asked that question. Maybe he'd never thought about it. So I was like, wow. And then he came back and he was mad. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is only 1% damaged. It's 99% good. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So now I'm backing off. I say, well, maybe I'm overreacting. Although I used to get 100% in my genetics exams because I was really into genetics, right? So I wasn't impressed with this 99. But then I thought, well, maybe it's only 1%. Maybe that's not a big deal. So then I say, when in doubt, do the math. So I did the math. And the question I asked was, if you have a tablespoon of an oil treated with Drano window washing acid, bleached and fried, like they are, all except extra virgin olive oil, and it's 1% damaged, how many damaged molecules will you find in that tablespoon? And I ask people that when I do lectures, when I do talks. They always underestimate the number of damaged molecules by at least 1 billion times. Underestimate. So 1%. Yeah, because in 1 tablespoon of an oil, 1% damaged by the processing, you get 60 quintillion damaged molecules. That's a 6 followed by 19 zeros.
Yeah.
That's more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells in 1 tablespoon. Most people use 2 to 4, and we fry them on top of that and do enormous damage by frying. So then I would say to people, okay, well, if you underestimated it how much damage is done to the oil by 1 billion times. I have another question for you. You're going to fly home for the holidays, and you're about to get on the plane, and somebody who only ever tells the truth tells you your chance of crashing and dying on this trip are 1 billion times higher than you thought it was. Would you get on the airplane?
No.
Right?
No.
And I told them in Ireland, I would canoe back to Canada.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? Chances wouldn't be good, but they'd be pretty,
better than that 1 billion times
and,
worth flying.
Yeah. And then the idea is, so knowing that you've underestimated the damage you're getting from the oil by 1 billion times, is knowing that enough to make you think about changing what you do in terms of your oil usage, in terms of frying, and in terms of using those oils in the first place. And some of them say, oh my God, I had no idea. Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So then my personal story was, when I found that out, I said, wow, I can't get healthy on oils like that. They should be made with health in mind, not with shelf life in mind.
Yes.
And I developed them, and I decided I'm going to do that. So what I did is I developed a method where the oil, from the time it's in the seat, where it's protected from light, oxygen, heat by nature's packaging.
Okay.
And nature does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
While it goes through the pressing, the settling, the filtering, the filling, the storing, the filling, until it's in a brown glass bottle, because you don't want oil in plastic. Plastic leaches into oil quicker than into water. Brown glass bottle in a box, nitrogen flushed, in the fridge, because you want to keep them cool, because these are perishable goods.
Mm-hmm.
So you treat them like lettuce. You don't put lettuce in your cupboard. You put lettuce in your fridge, right? And you eat it before it spoils. And so through all of that time, no light, no oxygen, and no heat gets to the oil, or no heat high enough to damage the oils, gets to the oils. And that means you have to make an anally tight production system, because light goes everywhere and oxygen gases go everywhere. So it has to be a really, really tight system. So I developed that system. I developed it first conceptually, and then we had engineers make it. And then out of that, the first oil that came out of that was flaxseed oil. Now, why flaxseed oil? Because in 1980, when I got poisoned and started, in 1981, it was established that omega-3s, not just omega-6s, are essential. Essential means you can't make it in your body. You have to have it to live and be healthy. Has to come in from outside, therefore.
Yeah.
If you don't get enough, your health goes down. You get deficiency symptoms. They're degenerative in nature. They get worse with time. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. This is like the essential building blocks for body construction and body function. And the third part, this is the good part, is if you're going down because you're not getting enough of any essential nutrient, but before you die, you bring enough of it back into your body, then all the symptoms that come from not getting enough are reversed, and you get your health back, because life knows what to do, provided you take responsibility here to make sure that all of the essential building blocks land in your body in optimum quantities if you want optimum health, because life knows how to do that, but it needs your help just here. Everything else after that is automatic. Life takes care of all of that. You have power here. You have enormous power over your health right here.
Yeah, just
right?
What you put in your mouth.
In your face, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you created the process.
Yeah.
And
then out of that came flaxseed oil, because it's the richest source of omega-3. They were established as essential in 1981. And it was known that 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3 for optimum health.
Yep.
Every cell needs them. They're a nightmare to work with because they're 5 times more sensitive to damage than omega-6s.
Yeah.
And, I went ballistic in my head. I lit up like a firecracker. It was like, oh my God, we could help so many people if we could bring omega-3s back into the diet made with health in mind. not damaged by processing. Like fish oils
Yeah.
are super damaged by the processing because they're super, even more sensitive than the plant omega-3s.
Mm.
And that's why fish oils burp, you get that awful burp.
Yeah, people,
and that's why they stink. And that's why they stink if you get them in bulk, and that's why they go rancid and the taste goes awful so quickly because they're so sensitive.
Yeah.
And so my view is the body has all the genes it needs to make fish oil, EPA and DHA that fish oils contain, and many other things from those. Your body, they can be made in your body because you have in every cell the genes required to convert them. The big issue is you're not getting enough starting material. If you don't get any starting material, you can't do any conversion. So let's optimize the starting material. And we went to basically a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. So for most people, that's 2 to 4 tablespoons, mixed in food and intake spread out over the course of a day. But the second thing that happens, so then you optimize your omega-3s, then you don't need the supplement.
Yeah.
And if you do use a supplement, I would say use krill instead of fish, because krill oil is not damaged by the processing. It's a completely different process they use. And it's in a better form that's better absorbed and better conserved and just as easily converted into all of the other stuff that they can
Interesting.
convert.
I remember being in chiropractic college in a nutrition class. And, we learned about the SAD diet, right? The standard American diet, which truly is sad. And to talk about omega-6s and omega-3s, so people just so they have a little understanding, like they're essential, but like when we have too many omega-6s, it creates a pro-inflammatory system.
Yeah, sort of, because omega-3s turn into anti-inflammatories.
Yes.
The omega-6s turn into two sets. One is pro-inflammatory, one is anti-inflammatory. The omega-3s keep the omega-6s from getting out of hand. So the ratio between the two is also important.
Yeah, well, yeah. So that's what I was going to say
and that perfect, because flax oil has a lot of omega-3, but very little omega-6. And I became omega-6 deficient on flax oil. And I got dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis-like pain in my finger joints, and thin papery skin. Classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. Fixed it by eating sunflower seeds because they have a lot of omega-6 and no omega-3. And then I developed a blend that I work with now. It's called Udo's oil. Yeah. Where we took care of that. We made it with health in mind. It's in glass. It's protected. It's refrigerated. If we ship it to Europe and Asia, like 2 weeks, any more than 2 weeks in shipping, we ship it refrigerated. And then it's refrigerated in the store. You refrigerate it at home, or you can freeze it if you buy it by the case, right? And once you open it, we say use it up in 8 weeks, because air will get in when you open it, and then the process begins of damaging the oil.
Yeah. So just to circle back for a second, when I was in that class, we were talking about like the average American's omega, like that ratio, the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And they were saying Americans were having, a 20-to-1 ratio, omega-6 to omega-3, which should be like, it's like 100%, like it should be a 2-to-1 ratio.
And the highest that ratio would be maybe 4-to-1.
Okay.
If you're healthy, you can get by with that if you get enough oil. But we used 1-to-2. So we do more omega-3s because 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3s.
Yeah.
And we give them enough omega-6s into the flax oil with sunflower and sesame that you don't end up getting omega-6 deficient, because flax oil is the only oil that has too much omega-6 compared to the omega-3s it has. So I don't use it anymore.
Okay.
And when you use that oil, we've done studies in athletes within 30 days of a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, mixed in food, intake spread out over the day. Within 30 days of starting to do that, their stamina, when they do their sport to exhaustion, is 40 to 60% on average. 40 to 60%. That's why I asked you, before we started. What, you haven't run any race on Udo's oil?
So that's going to be the next.
And we did that in both strength and endurance sports. We did it, and the boxers said their reflexes were sharper, and people recovered from injury in a third to a half the time. We worked with football players. We worked with cyclists, runners, martial artists. We've worked with all kinds of different sports, and they all claim. The bodybuilders and the weightlifters say if they take a gunk of oil, like a blog of oil, maybe 3 to 4 tablespoons, like the really big guys, right?
Yeah.
You say within 30 to 45 minutes, they notice their increase in energy. No,
Wow.
I've never noticed it because I don't work out like that.
Yeah.
So that was a new one for me.
Yeah. So
and I used to tell them, no, you're not going to get that kind of a hit, but they do.
Yeah. So then here's a question, we'll switch topics in a second. As we were talking pre-recording, as me as an ultra marathoner.
Yeah.
So let's say I have another race coming up, 50 plus mile or whatever it is. And, I'm pre-oiling, right? Like I've already started the process, months before.
Yeah.
During the event, what do you recommend, like for an ultra marathon where I could be spending anywhere from 12 to 20 plus hours of moving? So how am I getting, like, I'm obviously going to take it before I start, but when you're talking about like taking it spread out throughout a day.
Yeah.
So how would I do that as a runner?
Well, you tank up because it'll be in your tissues.
Okay.
So you tank up beforehand. So start a week, maybe 2 weeks, get your body used to it. But the point of carb depleting is that when you carb load, you turn off fat burning.
Yes.
And you turn on fat production. Of course, you're not going to get fat on it if you run a marathon because but you only get a pound. That's all your body can store.
Yeah.
Right. Of glycogen, of animal starch, right?
Yep.
From carbs. But if you're 8% body weight, fat, and you run half of that off, you can run 300 miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've fat has always been our energy storage forever. And so you could have 300 pounds of fat on you and you could run 3,000 miles on that.
Yeah.
3,000 miles of energy storage, right?
Yeah.
So even if you don't have a lot of fat in your body, and you can't burn all of it because some of the fat's in your membranes. So
of course,
that's why you're burning half of the 8%. But the key is that you need the fat burning mechanism wide open. And omega-3s turn on fat burning and turn off fat production. But carbs will override them. That's why you want to do it. Basically, it's like a ketogenic diet, but the ketogenesis is based on the essential fatty acids.
Okay.
Not on saturated fats, not on coconut and butter and palm oil.
Okay.
Because they don't burn as well as the omega-3s. So I call the omega-3s the fat burning fire starter.
Okay.
Like the kindling.
Okay.
Right. And then you can run. And then if your fat burning is turned on, you can just burn and burn and burn and burn. People say the reason why we survived is we could run down animals because animals are like 2 to 5% body fat.
Yeah.
We're usually more in the 10 to 15% range. Women a little more than that. And what we couldn't run as fast as the animals, but we could run longer, and we could literally just chase them.
Yeah, until
they exhausted themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's entirely true because I think we ate more plants than animal foods in most places in the world, because animals, are harder to catch.
Yeah.
When you have rocks to hunt with than plants are. So I think we were gatherer hunters rather than hunter-gatherers.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I say that all the time.
I must be channeling you.
Yeah, I have that conversation with friends that are, cardiologists that are, natural health, and they're like, no, we were hunter gatherers. I'm like, I think the other way around.
Yeah. And the research is pretty clear now that the best health and longest life come from a whole food plant-based diet. Plus B12 if you're completely plant-based.
Yeah.
And the more animal food you have in the diet, the shorter your life and the more health problems you have. A large part of it through the microbiome, because plants create a more friendly microbiome in your gut than animal foods do.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit, but
Yeah.
but I think this is really powerful for people to understand the omega
Mhm.
3s, to understand the process, and we're definitely going to have all the links that everybody
let,
needs to
let me just say one more thing about omega 3s.
Yes.
The research now, it wasn't available then. I just understood what essential means. And I thought, oh my God, giving people more of this essential thing has got to be really good for their health. I don't know in what way that's going to show up, but it's going to show up in some way. The research now on omega 3s, 30 years later, I've been at this for almost 40 years, 30 years later says if you increase omega 3s in your diet, and provided they're not damaged and not toxic, you can improve virtually every major degenerative condition of our time. And what that means is that to the extent that any of those conditions were caused by omega 3 deficiency, to that extent, they're going to be reversed by omega 3 supplementation or increase in omega 3s, because omega 3s will reverse everything that comes from omega 3 deficiency.
Yeah.
But it won't reverse anything else. If you're short of magnesium, you got a magnesium to fix that.
Yeah, of course.
But so the lack of omega 3 plays a partial role in virtually every major degenerative condition of our time.
Yeah, I mean it's in every single cell, right? Like those essential fatty acids are in the cell membrane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So like we need those.
Yeah.
We need those
and
cells to be healthy.
They improve hormone function at cell receptor level. They elevate mood and lift depression. They lower most of the cardiovascular risk factors. They make diabetics more insulin sensitive. It just goes on. They decrease inflammation. They make very powerful anti-inflammatories are made from them. So it goes on and on and on. They improve bone structure and bone function.
Yeah.
You build muscle quicker. You lose it slower.
Yeah.
You heal better
across the board. Neurodegenerative diseases as well.
And omega 3 deficiency is the single most widespread nutrient deficiency of our time, followed by magnesium for 80%. So omega 3 is 99%.
Wow.
Magnesium 80%, vitamin D 80%. And then the rest of the nutrients, different lower numbers.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit, because I think it's you have so much to offer, and I feel like we can have this conversation. We can sit here all day and do this.
Yeah, we could.
So I mean, we talk about like in Lifestyle Lock, we talk about unleashing human potential. You've obviously done that but with the omega 3s alone, like that's a huge life accomplishment. I mean, a humanity accomplishment. I would put it in that way.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I think you think of it as an accomplishment. I think of it, I had so much fun because it felt so good to know that what I was doing was actually bringing benefit to the quality of people's life. That's what I'm into. Either you raise quality of life or you end up with war.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had my wars, so I'm very clear.
Yeah, the direction you're going in. So let's turn that road now. So you've hit the omega 3s. You've transformed an industry where now people are going, holy cow! Like we can get quality. We're not getting Clorox or whatever in the world is in these other garbage oils. And we actually have something that can actually help us from the inside out. But I know there's more to you than just the nutrition side.
Yeah, right? Because I'm not, it's only 15% of my body is oils. 70% is water. So I work with water as well.
Okay.
And 10% is protein, 4% is minerals, less than 1% is vitamins. And there is an energy called life that runs the whole show.
Yep.
And in fact, I have a question for you. Sure. Whose body is that?
What do you say?
I pointed you and I say, whose body is that? What's your answer?
Whose body is that?
Whose body is that?
I guess it's my body.
Yeah. Okay. So most people will say, when you do that, they say it's my body. So when you say this is my body, you know what you've just said?
What?
You are not the body. You are the owner of the body.
Yes.
Right? It's like, if somebody points at my watch, he says, whose watch is that? I say, well, that's my watch. I'm not the watch. I own the watch.
Yeah.
So you own the body.
Yeah.
Well, who is the owner of the body?
Oh, the intelligence that runs it. I mean, that spark of life. I mean, I guess we can go down a cool rabbit hole, but I believe, and I use this example, I guess, with my patients, what's the difference between if I took a cadaver, freshly dead person,
Mhm.
and I put a live person, lie them next to the floor, all of the parts are there, all the fluids are there, all of
Yep.
those the things are there, but
Yeah.
there's the spark of life. That's ultimately the big difference. There's that intelligence,
Yeah.
a coordinating intelligence that allows us to
Yeah.
be.
So you are life. You are
Yes.
not the body. You are life. Now, what is life? Life is energy, comes from the sun, goes into bonds in molecules. That's where it's stored. You eat them, break them down. That energy is released. That's your life. You are that energy in your essence. And that energy is omnipresent in your body, like present everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
omniscient, all knowing, knows everything about your body because it's running it on the molecular electron level,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Omniscient, omnipotent, it's all the power in your body. And that is a definition of God: omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. We used to memorize that when we were in catechism class, right? Or whatever it was that we were doing. That's a definition of God. So life in you is the power of the divine. Now, you are life. So now my question is, how well do you know yourself?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question.
And most people would have to say, I don't know myself at all because my awareness is always going out into the world or into my head. But I never sit still and bring my awareness inside and get really still and get really quiet and breathe very lightly and just rest in that stillness and see how deeply I can get let go into that stillness and see how long I can stay there and see, hear, feel, and taste what it's like in there as life. Because you can actually, in that darkness, you can see light, you can see the light you are, you can hear the sound you are,
Mm-hmm.
you can feel the unconditional love you are. Because life loves your body unconditionally. In other words, you love your body unconditionally, except when your mind gets in the way and you eat
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right?
The educated
Right.
mind gets in the way.
Right. But
Yep.
life loves the body unconditionally. Now, how is that? Well, if you're having an anxiety attack, while you're having an anxiety attack and say, oh my God, what if? Your life is moving the molecules from your stomach, from your intestine into absorption, to carriers and takes them wherever they're needed to build your toenails or to build your skin or to build your liver, to
Mm-hmm.
repair something, to
Yeah.
the immune system needs to knock off a virus or a bacteria that got too close, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while you're tripping on all kinds of other craziness, the political craziness, the media craziness,
Yep.
the conflict between neighbors craziness, while you're tripping on that, your life is taking perfect care of your body. And that life energy cannot get sick, never dies, is perfect health. Perfect health begins with getting in touch with life. When you experience that unconditional love, you feel so cared for that you don't set blocks for yourself, except old habitual ones that you can disconnect. And then you start to look around and see, it's like when I started doing the practice of getting in touch with myself. Before that, I was always looking at everything and say, what can I do that will get me taken care of? Because I didn't feel taken care of. And then when I started feeling taken care of, because that's what it feels like when you're in touch with yourself, with the life that you are. Now it was, okay, it doesn't have to be about me anymore. I'm taken care of. And if I don't feel taken care of, I know where to go, where that
Yep.
lives in me, right? Now the question is, okay, since I'm taken care of, where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good that is possible to make in the time I have on earth? And it's always going to be something about life and care for life and support for life and encouragement of life. And it can happen on the physical, on the mental, on the social, on the emotional, on the environmental, on the life energy, and on the awareness level.
Yeah.
And the more fully present I am in all of my being, the more talent I have, the more I can share, the more I can help people with the help they need to take the next step in the quality of their life.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be always thinking about, yeah, I'll do that, but only if you pay me first.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because there's nothing left to do.
Yeah.
We had that left to do.
We had that conversation before, before recording, and I think you just summed it up in a very big nutshell. And then we talk about like being, doing, and having,
Yeah, right.
in that order. And like you're saying, I'm not doing this because I want to have the money, or I want to have the car or the computer, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
You have to have the being first, and then the action steps behind your being to actually have that.
Yeah, in fact, impact. I ask people sometimes, what's more important, being or doing? And, most people are doers. So I tell them, well, if you do too much, you turn into doo-doo. Right? But then to be serious about it, look, being is more important than doing, because you can be without doing, but you can't do without being.
Yeah.
So when you're a doer, you're living a life without foundation, because your being is your foundation. When you're not in touch with your foundation, your doing can get pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's not based on, what is it based in? Your base is your being.
Yeah.
So a human being, like who was it? The unexamined life is not worth living, said Socrates. Mm-hmm. And he said, know thyself. Why didn't he say know everything but thyself? That's what we do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why did he say know thyself? Because he knew from his own experience, because he was a master of that. And by the way, all the masters have said that. Find your connection. Get back to your heart. Who are you, other than meat and water, inside the space you occupies? Who's there?
Yeah.
Who are you? And you get more deeply into that. You start to feel that all the stuff you're looking for on the outside, which is to feel whole again, to feel good again, you got that all built in. It's always been there. You were in that state in your mother's womb because there was nothing to do and nowhere to go, and everything was taken care of, and you were, and it was relatively safe.
Yeah.
You were in a Buddha space. I call that the Buddha tank. The womb is the Buddha tank.
Okay.
So you're hanging out in this perfect space with your awareness inside. You're basically in light, and you hang out there for 9 months. And then you come out, and now you got to get to know the world. Your awareness goes out through your senses to anytime something changes, because you have to assess it. Is this friend, foe, or irrelevant? Right?
Yeah.
You need that for survival. And in that process, your awareness goes outside present. Now it's inside absent. That's where heartache begins. Heartache is never about the grandma who died, or the person who dumped you, or the betrayal of the person. Those are just transactions, right? Those are just facts of life. But whenever one of your distraction ends, and they all end, then you end up feeling the loss of, but it's your original loss of your connection to yourself. And that thing that's called heartache is actually your heart calling your awareness to come back home inside to your wholeness, to life. And when you take that, and it will bug you until you do. So everybody knows heartache, but most people don't get that this is the greatest gift you have other than being alive. Because it will not leave you alone until you get reconnected. Yeah. And when you get reconnected, then that heartache goes away. Because it's not it's triggered by something on the outside, but it's something that's already existing in everybody from the time they came into the world. They got, we called it spaced out in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're spaced out. Right.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to get spaced in.
Yeah. It's an inside out job, not an outside in job.
Yeah. And what I find when I do that, and I've been doing this now for 48 years. I started when I was 30, now I'm 78, right? So what I found is there's an awareness inside. That awareness has no content. It's like a witness. It's like a container, except it has no dimension. It's an experience of presence. That's the base. Then out of that comes energy, the life energy, and you can hear it, see it, taste it, feel it. And the shine of that is inspiration or creativity. And that's the bridge between life and the world. That's where your good impulses come from. That's where all our inventions come from. If you want to trace them back to where they come from. And the inventors sometimes don't understand that, but that's where it comes from. Then there's your body. Everybody knows food and fitness, but digestion is really important, and detox obviously is also important. Then the next one, the more negative part of mind, is survival smarts. Those are based on skills for the crises that can be anticipated, and calmness under fire that comes from being present in your own space. That's number 5. Number 6 is social group. That affects your health. Number 7 is the environment. That affects your health. Number 8 is the big picture. Big picture that here you are, here I am, here we are, living as life in terminal bodies in an infinite universe, and being okay with that. I'm not going around, I'm going to die, what am I going to do, how do I save myself? You know what? You want to treat the body like a good servant, not neglect it, not indulge it, and allow it to serve, to be the servant, the physical servant on the physical plane that we live on, of life, the servant to life. And when the goal of all of this is, each one of these 8 parts has a different nature and a different function, needs a different kind of attention on a regular basis, goes off in a different way in response to a different kind of intervention. And if you want to be fully healthy, you have to give each one of these 8 its due. And the goal is fully present in all of your being and your surroundings, and not lost in thoughts in your head. And then it's easy to live, because now it's like, okay, I know one day my body will check out. So I'm not going to freak out about Corona. I'll take my precautions. I'll respect other people's concerns. But, if I turn on the television, I can look around my house. I don't see any Coronas. I just see an enormous amount of peace. And peace cannot catch Corona. Mm-hmm. And life cannot catch Corona. And inspiration will always be free of any illness. And the more we live in that more inner part of our being, the more easily we'll be able to navigate the challenges that come at us in the world. If we're not present to that, those challenges will bowl us over, and then we'll be fearful and angry and all of that. And we don't deal well with things when we're angry and fearful. We actually deal with things better when we're calm. Calmness is the core of our being. Peace is the core of our being. So that's the short story on the long story.
That's the short story and the long story.
Yeah. So that's a big story, right?
It is a very big story.
Almost, every problem on the planet that we are under pressure to address did not begin with where the problem is. That's just the symptom. It began with our disconnection from ourselves. And we will not fix those. Out of that disconnection comes discontent. Out of that discontent, we do destructive things. Thoughts, words, actions, consequences. right?
Yeah.
The changes that need to be made will have to begin by us getting reconnected to the magnificence and the wholeness and the richness of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
And out of that kind of being comes a doing that creates a different, a more harmonious world.
Yeah.
And my goal is 8 billion people live their lives lit up from within, because the light's already there. It's a matter of looking into it instead of looking away from it. That requires taking time to sit still.
Yeah.
Just learning to get good at bringing our awareness in.
Yeah.
When we do that, we will feel so cared for that we won't steal each other's stuff. When we stop stealing each other's stuff, we can live in harmony together.
Yeah.
And when we can live in harmony together, making sure that everybody's basic needs are met on a sustainable long-term basis is actually going to be a piece of cake. Yeah. Without doing that, nothing will actually fix. So, Greta Thunberg, I love that teenage energy, but that's not the solution. The solution is, how do we get to the peace inside? How do we get to the unconditional love inside that then becomes, that informs our perception, and that informs our actions. And those actions will be different than the perceptions and the actions of being angry or being fearful or being discontent.
Yeah, and I think there's something powerful in the messaging and the stuff you were just talking about. And I think it's something that people can become awareness. There's something that I've spoken about before in the podcast, something called present time consciousness. And you kind of hinted on that in the being sense. So what I want all of our audience, everybody listening, just to think about when you are at work, or you're on a run, or you're with a spouse or a loved one. I want you to think of a time and just think about how present you are in that specific time.
In the good moments.
Yeah. So, but you have to become, 100% present. And I have to do this, as a chiropractor, when I'm with patients, if I walk into the room with a patient that's getting ready to get adjusted, and I'm thinking about, the rent for the office, how much is my, how many salaries am I paying? If that's my mind, if that's my consciousness, the intent on helping the person's body heal and perform and function optimally is not there. Down. Right. Like that present time consciousness is very powerful. So I want you to just think about when you are with your loved ones, when you are doing something that's intentional, if you are 100% there, that being is very powerful. Because the do becomes that much more intentional.
Yeah.
And the result is there.
Can I say one more thing about this journey?
Yeah.
I know from my experience, and also both doing science and then doing the subjective. Science is objective. This is subjective. Those borders, you can argue about that.
Yeah.
About observer effect and all of that. But science tries to be objective. They look at everything from the outside. They can tell you what light does, but they can't tell you what light is.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying here is the light that comes from the sun that is collected in the molecules, that becomes our life. That life, subjectively, you are that light. And when you are that light, and this is true for 8 billion people on the planet, that light is what the masters were in touch with. And that light is your master. So every human being has the master, whether you call him Krishna or Buddha or Christ or Lao Tzu or Socrates or light or life. Mm-hmm. It's all synonymous. They were teachers of human nature because they were fully present in their nature. How else are you going to teach human nature? If you're not present in yours, you can't really teach it. You can't give what you ain't got.
Yep.
They were present in that. The difference between them and us was only that they took it seriously to be fully present in their being. And we, at best, dabble in it or parrot their expressions instead of going to our master and bringing out our own expression, our own original expression. Imagine if 8 billion people were present to the light, the master within them, and lived like that. There's what the heaven on earth that people talk about. It's already there. We just have to dig it out. We're in it. We live in it. Mm-hmm. When I'm in that place, I look around and I say, oh my God, peace has always been everywhere. Even on the battlefield, peace is in the warriors, between the warriors, around the warriors. It's everywhere, except the warriors are not focused on the peace in them. They're focused on an idea in their head that says, you're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. And the other guy says, you're my enemy and I'm going to kill you, right? If they were aware of the peace within them, they'd probably sit down and have lunch together and said, this is, this fighting is shit. Why are we fighting? Why aren't we helping each other?
Yeah.
But that requires a personal connection to the master within that is called life. And there's where all the wisdom for living comes from. And if you have questions about living, best place is not to go to an expert. Best place to go is to your life and ask your questions of life, because life is running that show. Mm-hmm. Perfectly.
Yep.
Okay. So that's where all of that is headed. And I think we're in the process. And I think Corona has been one of the greatest gifts in some regards, because it put the entire human race on hold to it's like a timeout, give the kid a timeout to examine how they're living their life. And a lot of people are taking it that way. Of course, there's some hardships involved. And of course, we're addicted to a lot of things that now we can't do. And our first reaction isn't, oh, great, if I can't go outside, let me just go inside, because we're not there in our thinking. We're just saying, oh, why, and go, I'm going to fight that. And, oh, gee, but this is an incredible little space in our life, in history, after 200,000 years of going out. We're actually being forced to get present in our own lives.
Yeah.
And then when I'm present in my life, there's a Corona out there. There are some concerns, but I don't have to be anxious about it. I can be peaceful and take my precautions and do it in peace and do it in complete enjoyment of the fact that I'm alive and I can live in touch with life and I can live in peace in the midst of everything that is topsy-turvy, as we used to say as children, right?
Yeah.
And that's very powerful. That's very powerful. We have so much power to create a world that works for everybody.
Yeah. So Udo, this is a really wild conversation. We went from nutrition to life to the source, to all of these really amazing concepts and things, which I think are super, super powerful. So, I mean, I know you've got book, you've got supplements, you've got all sorts of really cool things that are going on, and we're going to link everybody to all of your connections, so to say. If you were udoschoice.com and theudo.com.
The
Udo. Well, I want to ask, I want to finish with this. So if you had the opportunity to sit down with, or sit in front of, we'll say 1 million people in a stadium or in a field and say, you have to do these 3 things or be these 3, or there are 3 things that have to happen for you to just start this process of being better, being healthier, being more compassionate, whatever it may be. What 3 things would you gift to those people?
The first one, I would say the first one, because it's the most important and most basic one, is that what you deep down are looking for has always been, is now, and will always be within you already. Go inside to dig it out. Go inside to make it real for yourself. Because it's real for me that it's in you. But if it's not real for you, then you need to go inside and dig it out. And the starting point for that is heartache. So sit with the heartache. Don't try to avoid it. Don't try to distract yourself. Don't blame it on somebody else. Don't ignore it and don't deny it. Sit with it, feel it, relax into it, accept it, embrace it. Be grateful that it will continue to bug you until you come home to yourself. And that far behind it is that wholeness, is that contentment, is that happiness, is that peace, is that love that you're looking for. That far behind it, like not even a hair's breadth behind it. So that's number one. Out of that experience, you will discover your purpose. Your purpose is already within you, and it's completely personal to you, and it doesn't follow a formula. You know, people give you formulas for success all the time. They haven't found their purpose. Your purpose is unique to you and comes out of your wholeness. It's already there, and it's based on your talents and your experiences and whatever you're interested in, whatever you have affinity for. Find that, because that is going to be where your biggest contribution comes from. On the physical level, your body needs an oil change, like your car. You need to get the dirty oil out and bring clean oil in. And then other than that, I would say digestive enzymes and probiotics are super important, because they were when we were eating fresh, whole, raw, organic, mostly plant-based, we got enzymes in the food that did 60% of the digestion of the food for us. And we had probiotics on the food that came out of nature. They started in our mouth. They went through the digestive system. They took a load off the digestive system, and they took a load off the immune system, made the immune system more able to deal with the challenges. But we got out of line, so now we've made ourselves weaker because of that. So I would add that as the next level, and then eat greens till they're coming out of your ears. So that would be on the physical level. And on the, let's see, what else? Oh, I would just say, you know, if you be quiet and you can look around and you discover what an life, what an amazing body it creates, sustains, repairs, and how it does that, and what surrounds you, out of which your body comes. I would probably practice gratitude or heart-centered, you know, breathing. Be heart-centered. Look at the world from there. You'll be a little less tall than when you're in your head. If you're in your heart, you'll be a little less tall than when you're in your head, but you'll be a lot wiser. And your life will go a lot better when you can do that. So those would be my you know, I mean, I could go on and on.
I know. Well, this is good. So this has been like a great journey. You know, I didn't think we were going to start in World War II and end up where we are in this conversation. So it's very impactful. You know, I'm sitting here as a student, you know, listening and learning as we go. And I know the audience is definitely doing the same thing, you know, while they're listening to this. So I want to
take a lesson. Yeah, let's take a lesson from World War II so that we don't end up with World War III.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to thank you so much. I mean, this has been a great journey to get to know you as not only as the expert that you are in the field that you're in, but as the person you are and what you strive to do and the legacy you want to leave with this world. And I truly think you are charging headfirst like a rhino in the right direction and creating what you want and creating an impact that I think is going to go far and wide.
And thank you for being on my team.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a good team to be on.
And amplifying a message that I think is timely and is important.
Yes. 100%.
I'm not as important as the message is, right?
Yeah.
So thank you. And you're obviously doing something similar in your own way. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm on that mission as well.
Yep.
So,
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Udo. That's been awesome. Everybody, make sure you do check out the show notes. Check out all of the links that we're going to drop for you. There's a lot of great places to connect with Udo and his message and his products. I think you're really going to go all in with him, and you're really going to make a big change in your own life. So get it. Check out the show notes. Get all the details and take your action steps intentionally. But be first. Remember that. Be first.
Be and do to have.
Yes, exactly. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Udo Erasmus. You know, it was brought to you by the 3065 Lifestyle Shift program. So if you have not yet checked that out, please do. Just scroll down in the show notes and you will see a link that's available to click on, and just check out that 3-minute video that's in there. This is a program like none other. Maybe not for everybody, but it may be just perfect for you or someone you know. So check it out. And back to the show. Holy crud. What a journey Udo has been on in his lifetime. I'm so glad we had the conversation. It was a long one. It was timely. It was needed. It is powerful. So I really hope you take some of his advice, take some of his information and his content, and apply it in your own life. I sure know I will. I can tell you, you know what? I will probably be applying the Udo's oil to my ultra marathon game. That's just one of the little things that we'll be doing, but there's much more. So make sure you check out the 3065 program. Make sure you scroll down, check out all the links that we have for Udo and how you can connect with him, get his oil, and all of that good stuff. And I look forward to seeing you throughout 2021. I'm Dr. Josh Hant. This is Lifestyle Locker Radio. Peace out.